Anyone who can't speak is not family. Get out!
What are you two doing? I pushed aside my son William and his wife Stella, holding my grandchild Alice protectively as she clutched her cheek in pain, glaring at them. William and Stella, showing no remorse, continued to insult Alice for her inability to speak. Seeing this, I decided to raise her myself and took her home with me. 10 years later. Suddenly, William and Stella appeared.
We missed you, Alice. We're family, right? Let's live again together.
We're not family with idiots. Please leave. I am Ashley, a 60-year-old housewife. A few years ago, I lost my husband and have been living alone in a large house since then. I considered living with William and Stella, but I decided against it. We just don't get along. Besides, I might end up helping out at the store they run. My body doesn't move as it used to when I was younger, and honestly, I'm not good with customer service. If we lived and worked together, it would only cause stress for both sides. So, I decided it was better not to live together. Even after my husband passed away, William never suggested living together. I was grateful for that. Having been freed from childcare and nursing care, I wanted to enjoy my time alone. But once I started living alone, it was lonelier than I had imagined. Having spent so much time on housework, childcare, and nursing care, I had no hobbies or friends. I spent my days killing time watching reruns of TV dramas. Even when I tried to take up new habits, they never lasted. In my dull daily life, my two grandchildren were a huge comfort. Nicole, 10 years old, and Alice, 6 years old. Both of them are very adorable girls. Nicole is pretty and good at charming adults. On the other hand, Alice is a bit clumsy and quiet. Compared to her pretty and charming sister, Alice often felt lonely. I love both of them, but I especially sided with Alice. That's because she seemed to be avoided by William, Stella, and Nicole. William and Stella visit about once every 2 months with the grandchildren. Grandma, Nicole says cheerfully as she runs up to me. Her clothes are always new, and her long hair is neatly styled. On the other hand, Alice's clothes are hand-me-downs from Nicole and look worn. Her hair is unkempt and unattended. Alice, who once loved to talk and chatted a lot when she first learned to speak, has become quiet lately. Looking down with a gloomy face unlike the smiling Nicole. I greeted Nicole.
Nice to see you.
Then I squatted down to speak to Alice.
Alice, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I have your favorite snacks today. Let's eat together.
Yeah. Grandma, what about mine?
Of course, I have yours too. Let's go inside.
As I held my grandchildren's hands, William and Stella called out as they got out of the car.
Mom, long time no see. Here, we brought you a gift. Oh, thank you. How have you two been? Make yourselves comfortable.
Thank you, Ashley. I invited William, Stella, and the grandchildren into the house, offering them drinks and snacks. William and Stella only talked to Nicole, ignoring Alice completely. When I tried to talk to her, Nicole would interrupt, or William and Stella would change the subject. I noticed how William and Stella treated Alice, but I thought it best not to interfere too much and just observed. However, I would come to regret that decision. One day, I had planned to visit William and Stella's house, bringing along some of their favorite snacks. When I arrived, I reached out to ring the doorbell. At that moment, I heard William shouting from inside the house.
Don't just stand there, say something.
Surprised, I put my hand on the front door and found it unlocked. Without hesitation, I walked down the hallway and realized the voice was coming from upstairs.
It's your fault I'm embarrassed at school because you won't speak.
As I climbed the stairs, the shouting continued, and then I heard a loud, dry sound as if something had been struck. I opened the door to the room where the noise came from and saw William, Stella, and Nicole berating Alice. Alice was holding her cheek, looking like she was about to cry, while Nicole was shaking her hand as if it hurt.
Hey, Alice. Nicole hit you, right? Can't you even say ouch? If you can't speak, you're not part of this family. Get out.
What are you all doing? I pushed past William, Stella, and Nicole, hugging Alice protectively and glaring at them. For a moment, they looked surprised but quickly recovered and said,
Mom, what are you doing here? You should have rung the doorbell before coming in.
That's right, Ashley, you're being rude.
The ones being rude are you. Surrounding a child and yelling at them. William, you're her father. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? And Nicole, why did you hit Alice?
For the first time, I scolded Nicole loudly. She looked scared for a moment but then said, "But," and looked down. Stella pulled Nicole close and said,
"Hey, don't blame Nicole,"
while glaring at me. I glared back without backing down. Taking her side after she hit Alice was not how a mother should act. Watching this, William pointed at me and shouted,
"Mom, what are you thinking? Get away from that idiot." The only idiots here are you. Apologize to Alice.
"What? Who's going to apologize?" William, Stella, and Nicole showed no remorse and continued to insult Alice. Alice, in my arms, grabbed my clothes weakly with a vacant look on her face. Had they been treating her like this all along? Without thinking, I picked Alice up and declared,
"I will take care of Alice. I can't leave her here."
Leaving the three of them stunned, I hurried out of the room with Alice. William stood there for a while, then approached with a sly smile.
"Mom, this is a relief. I didn't know what to do with her anymore."
As I stared in disbelief at William's words, Stella appeared behind him. She was carrying an old small suitcase and a backpack.
"These are her things. Please take care of the rest."
With that, Stella handed me the bags roughly. Neither Alice nor I could say anything, just looking up at William and Stella's faces. Both of them were clearly happy that Alice was leaving the house. Frustrated, I left the house without saying anything. When we got home, still silent, I placed her luggage in the hallway. Then she sniffled softly. When I looked at her face, I saw she was biting her lip and crying. I hugged her and stroked her back.
"Alice, you've been through so much. I'm sorry I couldn't help you until now. But it's okay now. From now on, I'm on your side. I'll protect you."
From then on, I started living with Alice. Alice, who had been hurt by her parents, didn't speak. Not even a single good morning. According to her teacher, she wasn't talking to her classmates or teachers at school either. Worried, I took her to the hospital to see a doctor. Alice was diagnosed with selective mutism. The doctor said that the strong stress and anxiety from her family had made her unable to speak. Now that her environment had changed, he said she would eventually be able to talk if given time. Feeling relieved, I bought her a cute notebook and pen on our way home from the hospital.
"Alice, if you want to tell me or anyone else something, write or draw it in this notebook. And little by little, let's practice saying the words out loud."
Alice immediately opened the notebook and started writing with the pen. Watching quietly, she showed me the page. On it were the words, "Thank you, Grandma," and a drawing of me. Alice opened her mouth, trying hard to speak. But she couldn't get the words out, and she looked down sadly.
"Alice, you're doing great. Let's keep going like this. Well done.
When I patted her head, Alice looked up and gave a faint smile. She began using the notebook and pen to communicate at school too. Perhaps gaining confidence, she gradually started to speak, and within 2 years, she could talk normally.
Grandma, guess what happened at school today?
As soon as she got home, Alice would eagerly tell me about her day at school. Seeing her so full of life, I felt truly relieved. One day, I visited the school for a parent-teacher meeting. When we entered the classroom, a kind-looking teacher greeted us. Alice and I greeted back and sat down. As we talked about how she was doing at school and at home, Alice squirmed shyly. Alice's grades have been improving steadily since last year. Look at this. The teacher showed us a report card. The graph showed a gradual increase since she started living with me, and now it was quite high.
I think it's because she is very studious. Recently, she's been buying difficult books and workbooks and studying every day,
I said as I patted Alice's head. Since she began to speak, she had become very diligent. At home, she would open difficult books and study, and on test days, she would show me her perfect score sheets. All those perfect scores were framed and displayed, and I looked at them with pride. I see. How about having an IQ test done at the hospital?
An IQ test?
I asked back. She might be gifted. And the teacher replied. Gifted children are those who have exceptionally high abilities from a young age. Alice's intelligence is remarkable. Because she had such a wonderful talent, the suggestion was to take an IQ test to prepare the right educational environment for her. I immediately took Alice to the hospital to take the IQ test. The result was as the school teacher predicted, she was gifted. I couldn't hide my surprise at how amazing her abilities were. I asked Alice,
How's your studies in elementary school? Are you having fun?
Alice replied, looking bored.
To be honest, it's too easy and boring. I want to study much more difficult things. But when I tell the teacher, they get troubled.
Listening to her story, I thought deeply. Can Alice do the kind of study she wants in this situation? What she probably wants is middle school or high school level study. Can Alice, who hasn't even graduated from elementary school yet, study that? I consulted with her teacher. The teacher told me that there is a region where the skipping grade system is prevalent. If we go there, Alice would be able to study what she wants. I remembered that my late husband's brother works in that area. I hadn't been in contact with him since my husband passed away, but he might be able to help. When I contacted him for advice, he said he would support our life there. Relieved, I suggested to her that we move.
If Grandma is with me, I want to go. But I want to go after I graduate elementary school with my friends. Okay, I understand.
Alice smiled, looking relieved. She made many memories in elementary school and graduated safely. She exchanged contact information with her friends, so they can stay in touch even after moving. I didn't tell William and Stella about the move. I thought that if they knew their abandoned daughter was gifted, they would try to take her back to use her. Alice quickly adapted to life in the new place and studied by skipping grades. I supported her with all my might.
I'm enjoying studying more than before.
Seeing Alice speak happily, I felt truly glad that we moved. Her talent was truly wonderful. A few years later, she entered Harvard University and studied business management, and then started her own company.
I will repay Grandma for everything,
Alice said enthusiastically. I already felt that she had repaid me enough, because she had grown up to be a fine adult. Her achievements were covered in the news and spread around the world, making her famous. Probably, her name is quite well known now. What do William and Stella think of Alice's success? I hope they regret all the terrible things they did. 10 years after Alice started her company, we moved again for work. As we were living in a new apartment, the doorbell rang. Thinking it was a delivery, I opened the door without any caution.
Long time no see, Mom. How have you been? William. And Stella, why are you here?
Seeing their faces, I was surprised. We had changed our contact information and moved far from where we used to live, so how did they find us? Ignoring my surprise, Stella called into the house.
Alice, are you there? We've come to see you after a long time. What do you want? Stay away from her.
Don't be cold, Mom.
We are Alice's parents. Yes, Ashley. Alice is here, right? Let us meet her. Hey, don't just barge in.
Before I could stop them, they pushed past me and entered the house. As I tried to hold them back, Alice appeared in the living room.
What's going on, Grandma? Whoa, wait, what?
Alice was just as surprised by the sudden visitors. I turned away, feeling awkward. Meanwhile, William and Stella looked delighted to finally see Alice.
Oh, Alice! We missed you so much. You've grown so much.
Stella tried to hug her, but Alice pushed her away.
If you want to talk, do it in the living room. I'll make some coffee. Please wait on the sofa.
Alice said coldly as she started preparing coffee in the kitchen. William and Stella made themselves comfortable on the sofa, sharing their memories with Alice without restraint. Worried, I spoke to Alice, who winked at me and gestured to let her handle it. Facing them, I soon heard the main reason for their visit. The business they had gone under due to poor management. Since starting her job, Nicole had cut off contact, and they didn't know where she was or what she was doing. Without work, they were now living in poverty, unsure when their savings would run out. Hey, Alice. Can you support us?
You left home when you were 6, but until then, we raised you. It's time to repay your parents. Alice, you must have felt lonely without us all these years. But now, let's live together. Let's make up for lost time and create new memories as a family.
I couldn't bear to watch them, pleading pathetically with Alice. I wondered where I had gone wrong in raising my son to become this kind of adult. Lost in self-blame, I was brought back to reality by Alice's voice.
No, I won't. You're not my family. My only family is Grandma. Leave now.
She wore a cold smile I had never seen before.
Alice, please. Wait, don't do this.
Alice refused to listen to their desperate pleas to live together. She forced them out, locking the door behind them. Through the window, I saw them walking away, shoulders slumped.
Grandma. What? Let's move.
She smiled as she spoke. I learned she had been secretly planning to build a house for us to live in together. It was designed to be accessible for me.
Thank you, Alice.
When I thanked her, Alice smiled sheepishly. A few months later, we moved into our new home. Thanks to Alice's thoughtful design, I lived comfortably. The walls were adorned with memories from our past. There was even the notebook and pen we had bought when we first started living together. Every time I saw it, I was moved to tears. Today, I think I'll cook Alice's favorite meal. With that thought, I started cooking in the kitchen.
I've never had a subordinate with such low education like you before, she said with a condescending tone.
Hearing those words, I was taken aback, my eyes widening in shock. What on earth was she misunderstanding about me?
Since when did I become your subordinate? I asked, my voice laced with confusion.
As I posed that question, the notorious female director's mouth fell open in surprise. When I revealed my true position to her, her attitude suddenly underwent a drastic transformation. I'm Sarah Ingram, 34 years old. After graduating from high school, I'm currently working as a company employee. When I was young, my dad left our home. Since then, I've been living with my mom in a single-parent household. However, my parents didn't go through a tumultuous divorce, so they still keep in touch even now. The reason for their divorce was a slight mismatch in their lifestyles. One day, my dad suddenly started his own company and became so engrossed in work that he neglected his family, causing my mom to become resentful and demand a divorce. Despite that, my dad still cared about me and my mom, faithfully continuing to pay child support for me. My dad and I would meet up a few times a year to have meals together and stay connected. When it came time to decide my career path, I also sought advice from my dad. He always watched over us from a slight distance, and my decision not to attend college was also influenced by his guidance. Around the time I graduated high school, I didn't have any clear aspirations or dreams. I spent my days idly without any definite goals, and my grades weren't particularly good either. Even though I considered going to college, I couldn't grasp what I truly wanted to study and found myself simply going along with the flow, hoping to pursue higher education. In response to my situation, my dad told me that once I started working, I would naturally discover what I wanted to study. At the time, I thought it was unusual not to go to college these days, but after hearing about my dad's experiences, I decided to trust his advice. When I discussed this with my mom, she readily accepted my decision not to attend college. From then on, I entered society, interacted with people from various backgrounds, and began to find what I wanted to learn. Before I knew it, I started thinking that I wanted to enroll in college and study, even if it meant taking online courses once I settled down. On days when I finished work early, I would proactively study using the reference books I had bought myself. If my high school self could see me now, I probably wouldn't be able to imagine this situation in the slightest. And so, I spent my days living a fulfilling life. Then one day, a young woman named King joined my company as a mid-career hire. According to rumors, she was highly educated and bilingual. Moreover, she had attended a renowned university overseas. I was surprised that such a talented person had joined the subsidiary company where I worked. Surely, in a few years, she would be transferred to the head office and be on the fast track to an elite career. There was another surprise for me. I was chosen to be King's mentor. At this point, I was an expert who had been working at the company for over a decade. Being well-versed in my job and recognized by those around me, I was told that I was the perfect fit to mentor this exceptional new employee. Feeling proud, I promptly went to greet King.
Starting today, I'll be your mentor. My name is Ingram. It's a pleasure to meet you,
I said with a friendly smile, eagerly anticipating what kind of person she would be. I imagined that she would be quicker-witted than me and would swiftly and efficiently tackle her work. I had conjured up this image of her in my mind. However, I would later come to learn that King was a person who greatly defied my expectations.
It's a pleasure to meet you too. I'll do my best.
King greeted me energetically during our first conversation. From day one, she took a liking to me and obediently followed my instructions. Over the next few days, I passionately taught King everything I knew about the job. She easily met my expectations. Moreover, it was a pleasure to work with her, as she was intelligent and would remember everything I taught her after just one lesson, which amazed me. After a few months, I thought I had built a great relationship with her. Then one day, around the time when the initial training was coming to an end, King approached me hesitantly during our lunch break.
I have a question. Would it be all right to ask? She inquired. A question? Sure. As long as it's something I can answer, I replied. Thank you. Well then, would it be okay if I asked about your educational background, Miss Ingram?
I was taken aback, not understanding the intent behind her question. King apologized to me, saying, "I'm sorry for asking so suddenly.
Your way of teaching is so easy to understand, Miss Ingram. I was curious about what university you graduated from and what you studied. I was hoping to learn from your example," she explained.
Sensing her genuine admiration, I understood where it was coming from. It was my first time being looked up to like this, so I felt happy, and a smile spread across my face. However, I was just a high school graduate and didn't have the impressive educational background she was envisioning. "I'm flattered that you think so highly of me, but I'm afraid I might disappoint you. Unlike you, I only graduated from high school," I confessed. I answered her honestly. Instantly, her eyes turned cold. By the time I realized I might have said something wrong, it was too late. Incredibly, her attitude towards me completely changed that very afternoon. Even though she had always listened attentively to me before, she suddenly stopped taking my words seriously. Despite being bewildered by her abrupt change in demeanor, I still believed in her and poured my heart into mentoring her. However, she started treating me with disdain, as if mocking my efforts.
"You had a lot of work in the morning, so you must be tired? Maybe we should slow down the pace a bit?"
I asked, concerned about King. But she curtly replied,
"Not really,"
refusing to change her attitude. The afternoon ended on that note. I went home with mixed feelings weighing on my mind. Ever since that incident, King's treatment of me had become harsh. She seemed to be spreading strange rumors about me within the company, and recently, even my colleagues had become somewhat cold towards me. One day, when my boss summoned me, I immediately headed to his office.
"Is something the matter?"
I inquired. My boss looked at me with a grim expression. Worrying that I might have made a mistake, I felt a wave of tension course through my body.
"Well, I thought you might be having some troubles with King," he said.
"What?" I blurted out, taken aback by his words. Prefacing with, "I heard a rumor," he proceeded to share the details with me. In short, the rumor claimed that I had been jealous of King's educational background and had become harsh towards her. Having no recollection of such behavior, I blinked in surprise, swallowed hard, and fell silent.
"You might be harboring an inferiority complex about being a high school graduate, but if you treat your subordinate too harshly, you'll regret it later on,"
he cautioned, giving me a probing look, and I was shocked by his words. Immediately after that, I called King into the conference room. I wanted to discuss the rumors with her. Somehow, I had a hunch that the source of the rumors was King herself. After all, there had been no such rumors before she joined the company. I couldn't understand why she was treating me with such contempt, but if things continued like this, it might hinder both of our work. Moreover, perhaps out of concern for us, the atmosphere within our department had lost its former tranquility. As soon as I saw King enter the conference room, I quickly approached her.
Miss King, did I do something to offend you? I just heard a strange rumor from my boss. He said that my attitude towards you has been poor. What do you think about that? If there are areas I need to improve, could you please let me know specifically what I'm doing wrong? I'll put in the effort to change. If this continues, it might hinder both of our work. If you don't like being mentored by me, I can arrange for a different mentor, but..."
I said. King maintained her unfriendly demeanor, scrutinizing me as if assessing my worth. I couldn't help but tense up under her uncomfortable gaze.
"Well then, if that's the case, would it be all right if I had someone else mentor me?"
How should I put this? "I was disappointed with you, Miss Ingram.
I mean, you only graduated from high school, right? I was hoping we might get along well, but to think you had such a low level of education. She remarked. What?
I blurted out, taken aback.
You know, don't you? I graduated from a renowned university abroad and am bilingual. To think that someone like me is being mentored by a person with such a low educational background like you. Maybe I should be the one mentoring you instead?
King said with a malicious grin, laughing. Seeing her attitude, I clearly understood that she was looking down on me. However, I didn't feel irritated. Rather, I was a bit shocked to realize that although I had thought she was intelligent, she turned out to be a narrow-minded person. Observing my reaction, King had a triumphant look on her face.
Oh, and don't even think about trying to compete with me out of frustration. You and I wouldn't even have a proper match. And just between us, there's talk of me being transferred to the head office. I'll be saying goodbye to this small subsidiary company soon, so there's no point in changing mentors now. So from now on, don't interfere with what I do, okay? She warned. That won't work. There are still things I haven't taught you yet, and there aren't many tasks that can be entrusted to you alone, right? Especially if you're going to the head office. I protested.
Huh? What are you saying?
Don't underestimate me even though you're just a high school graduate. Don't you think that's rude? Besides, unlike you, I'm highly capable, so I can produce better results than you even on my own, she retorted.
King laughed maliciously, then waved her hand and left the conference room. I watched her back and let out a deep sigh. Even after that, the rumors didn't disappear. Moreover, after it was decided that King would be transferred to the head office, her attitude towards the other employees, not just me, became arrogant. Even when King was reprimanded, she absolutely refused to acknowledge her mistakes and never apologized. Furthermore, she boasted about her educational background, looked down on those around her, and took the liberty of advancing her work on her own. Even when I advised her to follow the established methods and manuals, she insisted that her way was more efficient and refused to comply. As a result, the tension within the department had risen to the point of making it uncomfortable. The day finally arrived when King was to be transferred to the head office. After King finished her farewell speech, gathered her belongings, and left, I could tell that the employees in the department were relieved. And then, a few days later, the calm and pleasant atmosphere from before returned to the department. I, too, was truly delighted by that change. 3 years passed since then. At my boss's recommendation, I was transferred to the head office. I had already been commuting to the head office several times and was being taught various tasks. Every day, I rushed from one department to another, gradually taking care of the tasks I was asked to do. Although King also worked at the same head office, since I was always running around, we only saw each other during meetings. The first time I participated in a meeting and briefly introduced myself to everyone, King's face contorted dramatically. As soon as the meeting ended, she approached me with a sour expression.
Transferring to the head office despite being a high school graduate. You must have worked hard to butter up your boss. By the way, were you able to properly understand the contents of the meeting just now, considering you're a high school graduate? Before you start crying because you don't understand, I recommend you quickly quit the company, King said with a nasty laugh. I curtly replied, I'll be fine, and immediately left the spot. In the first place, it wasn't a matter of understanding or not. I was the one who prepared the materials for this meeting. However, I didn't want to bother prolonging the conversation by saying such things. My true feelings were that I wanted to avoid getting involved with her as much as possible and focus on completing the tasks assigned to me. Whether she knew about my true intentions or not, King made snide remarks every time she saw me.
She was the director of the most prestigious department in the company, where highly skilled individuals gathered. Almost everyone at the head office aspired to be in that department, and every year, many employees submitted transfer requests to join. However, since King became the director, the reputation of that department had become incredibly poor. Apparently, King would yell at and berate subordinates who made mistakes more than necessary. Every day, angry shouts echoed throughout the department, and the atmosphere during work was said to be the worst. Hearing that, I was appalled. King seemed to be exactly the same as when she was at the subsidiary company. If anything, she seemed to have gotten worse. I had even encountered that situation once myself. It happened when I had some business to attend to at King's department.
How can you not even do this? Is your brain just for decoration? Submitting a document like this is disrespectful to our client.
King shouted, ranting and raving in the department. Fear and tension permeated the department, and the employees averted their eyes from King and the female employee she was scolding. Furthermore, King wasn't satisfied with just yelling. She started forcing the female employee to apologize profusely. Feeling that I couldn't stay silent any longer, I immediately called out to King.
I don't know what happened, but please calm down. Can't you see she's crying?
King looked at me, snorted, and insisted that this was her way of doing things. Nevertheless, I persisted, saying that it wasn't good to yell because the other employees were also frightened. Finally, King calmed down and dismissively said, "Fine," allowing the female employee to leave. Seeing her like that, I sensed a crisis. If things continued this way, the department would fall apart. And so, I immediately took action. Starting today, I have been assigned to this department. My name is Ingram. I may have some shortcomings, but I look forward to working with you all. I said, nodded deeply as I greeted the employees in King's department. The employees exchanged glances, perplexed by my sudden transfer. In the midst of this, King looked at me and exclaimed, "Oh, that's right.
I forgot to tell everyone that Miss Ingram was coming." "Well, I guess there's no need for that anyway,"
King said with a malicious grin, eyeing me from head to toe.
"I've never had a subordinate with such low education like you before."
King immediately brought up my educational background. Hearing this, the other employees looked at me with sympathetic eyes. They probably thought that instead of the employee who was forced to apologize profusely earlier, I would now be the target of King's harassment. I could hear whispers here and there, saying things like, "I wonder how many days she'll last. I wonder how many days she'll last." I surveyed my surroundings, then turned my gaze back to King and stated clearly,
"Since when did I become your subordinate?" "What?"
King looked at me with surprised eyes. I told her,
"I didn't mention it, did I? I'm actually the executive vice president of this company. I heard rumors about the problems in this department and thought that things couldn't continue like this, so I came to investigate the cause. Well, I think I understand now. I've also recorded your earlier remarks."
As I said that and pulled out a voice recorder, King stared at me with a stunned expression.
What's the meaning of this?"
King shouted, her voice cracking.
"It means exactly what I said,"
I retorted. Then, I informed King that she was being demoted. I told her that she would be removed from her current position as director and would be required to visit the subsidiary companies again to undergo management training. King's face grew even paler.
"Why, you're going to demote me based on just those words? That's an abuse of authority. I can't believe you're the executive vice president in the first place. What is the company thinking?" King objected.
But I pulled out another voice recorder and said, "This isn't the only evidence." I played back King's abusive language at a volume loud enough for everyone around to hear. This was the evidence I had been gradually gathering since the day I advised the CEO that there were issues in this department. I submitted these voice recordings to the CEO to inform him about the true state of this department. After listening to the voice recordings, the CEO made a grim face and gave me permission to demote King. When I explained this, King still refused to give up and lashed out at me.
There's no way the CEO would have given permission for that. I mean, I'm a bilingual graduate from an elite university, and I've achieved so much for this company. If I'm removed from this department and you end up leading it, it will quickly become the worst performing department. After all, you're just a high school graduate from a single-parent family, right? I can't imagine someone like you being more competent than me.
King ranted in rapid speech, her shoulders trembling with anger as she confronted me. I calmly stated, "It's an official order, so you can't refuse." In response, King yelled at me the same way she would scold her subordinates and demanded that I apologize profusely right away. To make her understand her situation, I had prepared a secret plan.
I anticipated that you would yell at me like that. That's why I've also arranged for witnesses.
I said.
What? Do you think I could have gathered so much evidence of your behavior all by myself?
As I said that, I glanced at a few employees within the department. The employees who caught my gaze gathered around King and me. Among them was the female employee who had been forced by King to apologize deeply. King looked at the subordinates who had gathered with a surprised expression. The number of people was roughly half of the department. They were all individuals who had been unjustly suspected by King, had their achievements stolen, and had been mentally cornered.
What is this? Are you all ganging up on me to trap me? King exclaimed.
No, that's not it.
They talked to me and cooperated with what I'm doing.
I explained.
This is betrayal. You're all my subordinates, aren't you? Instead of supporting your superior, you're cooperating with this poor person with low education? Are you out of your minds? It's not too late, even now. If you side with me, I might even give you preferential treatment, you know?
King shouted, spitting as she looked around at her subordinates. However, not a single person listened to King's words. They simply directed cold stares at her as she continued to hurl insults. Perhaps hearing the commotion, a certain individual showed up at the department. It was the company's CEO, Isaac. The sudden appearance of a big shot caused a stir within the department. Seeing Isaac's face, King's face turned pale, and she swallowed hard.
I could hear the shouting all the way from the hallway. Is there a problem?
Isaac asked, looking at me. I briefly explained the current situation and told him that when I informed King about her demotion, she strongly objected. Isaac made a grim face and looked at King. Seeing Isaac's expression, she came to her senses and hurriedly tried to smooth things over.
Miss Ingram is trying to discredit me. She must be jealous of my high education. My subordinates have been deceived too. Mr. Isaac, you might have been told something as well, but please don't be fooled. You can't trust someone like her. I think it's Miss Ingram who should be demoted.
King pleaded with Isaac, then glared at me with sharp eyes. Her face had a look of confidence in her victory. Indeed, I knew that a strong bond of trust had been built between King and Isaac. After all, it was Isaac who had recruited King. Originally, King had been working at a different company. She had a reputation among the upper management as an exceptionally talented employee, and she often attended parties alongside executives and the CEO. That's when she also met Isaac. Seeing her numerous achievements and her attentiveness to those around her, Isaac was convinced that she would deliver outstanding results at his company as well. He offered her a higher salary than the company she was currently working for and successfully recruited King.
Mr. Isaac, you trust me more, right?
King puffed out her chest, regaining her confident stance. Isaac only frowned at her. Perhaps sensing the unfavorable atmosphere, King further emphasized her accomplishments in this department and how capable she was. However, Isaac shook his head at her.
I want to trust both of you. But after hearing Miss Ingram's report, I must admit I'm disappointed. You have changed. I don't know why it turned out this way, but your transformation is not a good one. That's why I want you to learn anew at this company. Why do you trust Miss Ingram to such an extent? To begin with, she's just a high school graduate from a single-parent household, you know? King exclaimed.
At King's words, Isaac made a grim face. After groaning in thought for a while, he said as if giving up.
That's my responsibility. I've kept quiet about it, but Miss Ingram is my daughter.
King was stunned. She slowly looked back and forth between Isaac and me. The employees around us also held their breath and stared at us. It was only natural since I had kept quiet about it too. Isaac then explained that his wife had become fed up and demanded a divorce because he had neglected his family, selfishly started a company, and acted as if he owned the place. As a result, he had made me feel lonely.
In no way. The CEO's daughter? But she's a high school graduate, you know? This is special treatment. I can't believe Mr. Isaac was that kind of person.
King looked at the CEO and me with a resentful expression on her surprised face. I sighed at her attitude.
About that, I'm no longer just a high school graduate. Originally, I didn't go to college because I didn't have anything I wanted to do, but now I've found many things I want to learn. So, just the other day, I graduated from a state university. It's a well-known school that even King is familiar with. I studied business there. What? And just between us, the reason I studied business is that Mr. Isaac asked me to become the next CEO. The board members have also agreed to me becoming the next CEO.
I said decisively and met King's gaze. King looked at me as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. I handed her the documents regarding her demotion. She weakly accepted them and collapsed to the floor.
I hope this will be an opportunity for a change in your attitude. You are indeed talented, and I believe you have the potential to become an irreplaceable asset to my father's and my company.
As I finished saying that, King covered her mouth, her eyes wide open, and remained frozen for a while. Afterward, King left the head office. There were rumors that she would quit the company since she had been demoted and had her salary reduced, but it seemed she chose to stay with the company for the time being. However, since the news had already reached the subsidiary she was transferred to, she wasn't entrusted with any important work and spent her days doing simple clerical tasks and miscellaneous chores. So far, I haven't heard of any major issues, but if she causes problems again, she won't get away with just a demotion, so she seems to be keeping a low profile. There's a backstory as to why she chose to stay with the company. Once, King visited the company she used to work for and tried to negotiate with them to hire her back at her previous salary. However, the CEO there was aware of her recent behavior and turned her down, telling her to reflect properly on her actions. It's a harsh reality for her, but she has no choice but to accept that it's the result of her own actions. Moreover, people from other large companies connected to the CEO of my company and the CEO of the company she used to work for had also heard rumors about her behavior, so it seems no one wanted to hire her. No matter how talented someone is, if their conduct is poor, they'll be turned away as too much to handle. Yet, perhaps due to her pride, the companies she approached were all relatively large corporations, so she probably didn't want to work for a company with a lower income than her previous salary. King needs to learn that in order to maximize her abilities and perform her job well, she must let go of that pride. Then one day, as I was returning from a business dinner, I happened to run into King at the company. It seemed she had some business at the head office. The employees around us remembered her and were openly avoiding her. When King saw me, her eyes widened, and she immediately straightened her posture and greeted. Her expression was somewhat frustrated, and it was clear that she still hadn't sorted out her feelings. While she was doing that, I continued to achieve steady results. It seems that since I became the CEO, the company's sales have further increased. My company has now become a global corporation that can compete on the world stage. My parents fully support me in my endeavors, and I'm determined to work even harder to live up to their expectations.